Hello, so today we're going to be learning about the history of the sandwich. And even if there was an Earl of Sandwich, I don't know if it's even a real person. I know it's a restaurant at Disneyland, but we'll see if he was a real guy. And I got Murphy here, right? Got the doggy here, but she's going to be covered up by the screen. Sorry, Murph, bye. History of the sandwich. Okay, boom, right away. On Wikipedia, at least, it says, the sandwich is named after John Montagu, 4th Earl of Sandwich. I guess it's real. So would you believe that Americans eat more than 30 million sandwiches a day? The US population in 2019 was only 328 million. So either we're all eating one sandwich a day, or there's a few people eating more than one sandwich per day. That's astounding. But I suppose it depends on what you count as a sandwich, right? The age-old debate. Is a hot dog a sandwich? I'm not going to get into that. Well, maybe I will, but we'll see. So the sandwich as we know it was popularized in England in 1762 by John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich. So Montagu had a substantial gambling problem that led him to spend hours on end at the card table. And during one particularly long binge, he asked the house cook to bring him something he could eat without getting up from his seat, because my God, the Earl of Sandwich had to gamble. And hence the sandwich was born. That was it. He enjoyed his meat and bread so much that he ate it constantly, and as the concoction grew popular in London society circles, it also took on the Earl's name. I feel like it should be given to the cook who made it. Montagu just asked for it. But here it says, of course, John Montagu, or his nameless cook, was hardly the first person to think of putting fillings between slices of bread. Not a very novel idea, apparently. It does seem pretty obvious if you have bread. We know exactly where Montagu first got the idea for his creation. So Montagu traveled abroad to the Mediterranean, where Turkish and Greek meze platters were served, which is basically like an appetizer. Dips, cheeses, and meats were all sandwiched between and on layers of bread. In all likelihood, Montagu took inspiration from these when he sat at that card table. So he must have told the cook, hey, give me some bread and put some meat in between it, I guess. But I guess this was the first time people in England really saw a sandwich, and it just exploded in popularity. Okay. By the Revolutionary War, the sandwich was well established in England. And why not? It's delicious, portable, you can go anywhere with it. You would expect American colonists to have taken to the sandwich as well, but there's no early written record of them in the new country at all, until a sandwich recipe didn't appear in the American cookbook until 1815. So maybe these American colonists, they saw it as like an English type of thing and said, no way, we're separating ourselves from England. We don't eat the sandwich. No thank you, Mr. Earl of Sandwich. Yes, American cooks tended to avoid culinary trends from their former ruling state, England. And the name sandwich itself comes from the British peerage system, something that most Americans wanted to forget. So apparently even the name, the last name Sandwich, I guess, was pretty popular or familiar in England. Now I've never heard of anybody named Sandwich. That would be strange to meet somebody with the last name Sandwich, but also pretty cool. First name Tuna, middle name Salad, a band of brothers named Paul, Barry, and Jerry, the PB&J Sandwich Brothers. But as time went by, Americans, they forgot about that, and the sandwich started to become popular again. Okay, so before we get into like the modern sandwiches and the popular sandwiches that were invented and we eat today and stuff, I'm gonna go back. I want to see how far back sandwiches actually go, because it seems like a pretty basic concept that has been around forever. So I figure essential for sandwiches, you need bread. So when was bread invented? According to history, the earliest bread was made in or around 8000 BC in the Middle East, specifically Egypt. So you got bread. I'm guessing they had meat before they had bread. So the first recorded sandwich was by a famous rabbi, Hilary the Elder, who lived during the 1st century BC. So it was almost, 8,000 years from when we invented bread until we had the sandwich. But it's tough because there wasn't really written records of people having sandwiches, I guess. But man, it may have taken a few thousand years for us to figure out that we could put some meat in between that bread we were making and have a nice to-go sandwich. So this rabbi, Hilary the Elder, started the Passover custom of sandwiching a mixture of chopped nuts, apples, spices, and wine between two matzahs to eat with bitter herbs. The matzah is just like this flat type of crispy bread. The filling between the matzahs served as a reminder of the suffering of the Jews before their deliverance from Egypt and represented the mortar used by the Jews in their forced labor of constructing Egyptian buildings. Wow, so it has some significant meaning right from the beginning. So this practice of eating the sandwich was added to the Seder, and the Hillel sandwich was named after him, the Hillel sandwich. Okay, so it looks like a Hillel sandwich, just a snack really. I guess it's a small sandwich, but it's still used at Seder dinner. It sounds like Hillel was actually the inventor of the sandwich as far as, we can tell with written history. So at least he has a sandwich named after him, but we still eat a sandwich, not a Hillel. Look at this. During the Middle Ages, thick blocks of coarse stale bread called trenchers were used instead of plates. Meats and other foods were piled on top of the bread to be eaten with their fingers and sometimes with knives. A thick, stale piece of bread don't sound very good. But the trenchers, the thick and stale bread, absorbed the juice, the greases, and the sauces from the meat. So at the end of the meal, you either ate the trencher, or if your hunger had been satisfied, you toss the gravy-soaking bread to your dog. That's pretty cool. Or you give it to less fortunate or a poorer human. You donate your bread plate, apparently. So that's starting to sound, it's like an open-faced sandwich. I don't know if you'd really call that a sandwich, but, we're 2/3 of the way there at least. So what then were sandwiches called before they were sandwiches? Great question. Wow. So this guy, Mark Morton, went through a ton of texts and plays that were written long before the Earl of Sandwich was even born, and the sandwich appears to just have been called bread and meat or bread and cheese. Hey, that works too. In a late 16th century play called Love and Fortune, a young man pleads for a piece of bread and meat for God's sake. I'm sure he would have said sandwich if the word was invented yet. So then we get to 1762 with the Earl of Sandwich, and it sounds like people were definitely eating meat and bread and cheese all together in a sandwich type of form before all this. But how did it go from being called just meat and cheese or meat and bread to a sandwich? Why did the Earl of Sandwich get it named after him? So it was Edward Gibbon who is credited with being the first person to actually write down the word sandwich. So in 1762 he wrote in his journal 20 or 30 perhaps of the first men in the kingdom in point of fashion and fortune supping at a table covered with a napkin in the middle of a coffee room upon a bit of cold meat or a sandwich and drinking a glass of punch. This is good. Okay, why that they started to name the sandwich after Earl of Sandwich? It's because his friends began to order the same as sandwich because that was his name. So they said the same as sandwich, I'll have that. So naturally they just start to call it the sandwich. Because you crazy Earl of Sandwich, you love this thing. Okay, so that's the story. That makes sense. So the sandwich gets more and more popular. It goes over all of England, but then the Americans, the colonists, don't really like it. They don't want to be associated with England. So again, it's not until like 1815, 1816, when a sandwich finally shows up in an American recipe for the first time. So, and this is where they start to get creative. They're not just putting meat and cheese in these things anymore. They're going for fruit, shellfish, nuts, mushrooms, all this kind of stuff. And apparently it got popular in the Civil War. They could be found anywhere from high-class luncheons to the tavern of the working class, which is still true today. You can get a cheap old sandwich for like $1 at the gas station, or you can get the nice sandwich at pretty much any fancy restaurant. Then we get to, kind of by the end of the 19th century, we get the different forms of sandwiches, like the triple layered club sandwich and the corned beef Reuben. So we'll get to those, some of the kind of different, more popular types of sandwich, but it wasn't until the invention of sliced bread in the 1920s. Gustav Peppendick invented sliced bread, and sandwiches really exploded. They found a new audience. Mothers could easily assemble a sandwich without the need to slice the bread, and children could safely make their own lunches without the use of a knife. The portability and ease of sandwiches caught on with families, and the sandwich became a lunchroom staple. Yeah, imagine having to slice your bread for your sandwich is just that extra step that makes me not want to do it. I could see how sliced bread really just rocketed the sandwich into popularity even more. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we could be here forever, but I want to dive into some of the more famous sandwiches. So we'll start with the Reuben sandwich. It's just a grilled sandwich with corned beef, Swiss cheese, sauerkraut, Russian dressing, grilled between slices of rye bread. So of course there's multiple stories about who invented the Reuben. The first one is that a guy named Reuben Kolokowski asked for a sandwich made of corned beef and sauerkraut at his weekly poker game, sometime between 1920 and 1935. So actually kind of sounds like the Earl of Sandwich story. So they made this for Reuben. They added Swiss cheese and Thousand Island dressing to his order and put it all on rye bread. Nice. And then this was all at a hotel where he ordered this. So the fame of the Reuben spread when a former employee of the hotel won the National Sandwich Idea Contest with the recipe. So that sounds pretty legit. Another story says a man named Arnold Reuben, who was the owner of Reuben's Delicatessen, created the Reuben Special in 1914, which I guess was the Reuben sandwich. I guess we'll never know. So next, the club sandwich, which is cooked chicken breast and bacon with tomatoes and lettuce layered between 2 or 3 slices of toasted bread with mayonnaise. So it can optionally be 3. I thought it was mandatory to be 3. But same as with the Reuben, no one really knows where the hell this sandwich came from. Everyone's claiming different things. But we could probably say that the name for the club sandwich probably is because it was popular at resorts and country clubs. Alright, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, a classic. These are still just so good. I have one maybe every 6 months or so, and when I have it, ooh, I love it. So first, the invention of peanut butter, gotta have that. So it looks like it was kind of invented. They just crushed up peanuts into a paste for patients or people with bad teeth. And then peanut butter just kind of got more popular. They took it to the St. Louis World Fair, which is what you did with a popular product back then, and it just exploded. So it's tough again because all we have is like written stuff. We don't know for sure, but the very first peanut butter and jelly sandwich recipe appeared in 1901 by Julia David Chandler in the Boston Cooking School magazine of Culinary Science and Domestic Economics. Really rolls off the tongue. But she says make little sandwiches of 3 very thin layers of bread, 3 layers of bread like a club sandwich, and 2 of filling, 1 of peanut paste, peanut butter, whatever brand you prefer, and currant or crab apple jelly for the other. The combination is delicious and, so far as I know, original. So maybe she did actually invent it. Maybe we know for sure that Julia David Chandler invented the PB&J. So then in the 20s and 30s you get like Peter Pan and Skippy peanut butter start to be introduced. But during World War II, peanut butter and jelly were on the US military ration menus. So it said that American soldiers added jelly to their peanut butter to make it more palatable. So the servicemen got used to it in the war, and then when they returned, they were on the hunt for peanut butter and jelly. So the sales soared of peanut butter and jelly and PB&J sandwiches. Wow, and this just came up. Have you ever heard of a fluffernutter sandwich? It's a calorie-laden sandwich made with 2 slices of bread layered with peanut butter and marshmallow fluff, and sometimes the occasional banana. That sounds kind of okay. That photo makes it look really gross, but I'll try it. Alright, the Philly cheesesteak, which is just a sandwich made with thinly sliced pieces of beef steak and melted cheese, and I think there's also generally grilled onions and peppers in there. Maybe not peppers. So this story's a little debated, but it looks like Philadelphians Pat and Harry Oliveri are often credited with inventing the sandwich by serving chopped steak on an Italian roll in the early 1930s. So Pat and Harry owned a hot dog stand, but they basically decided to kind of mix it up and use chopped beef and grilled onions for a sandwich once. And the story goes, a cab driver stopped by. He said, "Hey, give me one of them." And the cab driver loved it so much, he suggested that Oliveri quit making hot dogs and instead focus on this new sandwich. And so that's exactly what they did. They became so popular, he opened up his own restaurant, which still operates today as Pat's King of Steaks. Look at this, Pat's King of Steaks. You can still go visit it. Oh, that's really cool. Great sign, too. That looks delicious. That is just nutty. They only have 3 out of 5 stars on Yelp, but they have over 4,000 reviews. Either way, I'm going. This is awesome. And then the Croque Monsieur sandwich. I love these. They're so good. Basically like a jazzed up grilled cheese. So it's just ham, cheese in between a bread, kind of like a brioche type of bread, and then you could put the grated cheese on top also, and pepper and all kinds of stuff. It's so good. So same with this, no one really knows where it came from, but one version of this story suggests that the sandwich was created on accident by French workers who left their lunch pails too close to a hot radiator radiator and the heat toasted the bread and melted the cheese in their sandwiches. That's a fun, I love the accident stories. Those are great. Yeah, it's crazy how many of these we just don't know where they came from, but it makes sense when you think about it, where you just have bread and you experiment by putting different things in between the bread in the sandwich and toasting it, not toasting it, cheese, grilled, not grilled, you know? So it's hard to pin down these types of things, and of course people are going to argue about who invented it and who gets to name it after themselves and all that, but nonetheless, these are fun stories. Now to finish off, let's answer the question, is a hot dog a sandwich? So we should start off by defining what a sandwich is. So Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines a sandwich as 2 pieces of bread with something, such as meat, peanut butter, etc., between them. So that would lead us to suggest that a hot dog is not a sandwich, because that's 1 piece of bread with a slit in it for the hot dog to go into. But you have an open-faced sandwich, which is still called a sandwich, and that's only 1 piece of bread. So maybe a hot dog's an open-faced sandwich. So the president of the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council, a trusted source, has said a hot dog is not a sandwich. If you go to a hot dog vendor and you say, give me a sandwich, they're gonna look at you like you're crazy. It's just culturally not the same as a sandwich. I agree with this guy. But on the other hand, it is just meat between bread, which is what a sandwich is, right? Nah, I'm gonna say a hot dog is not a sandwich. It doesn't fit the textbook dictionary definition, and it's just not. Like what this guy said, if you order a sandwich and you get a hot dog, you're gonna be upset. If you are looking for a hot dog and you order a sandwich, you ain't getting a hot dog. Well, hope you enjoyed that dive down the history of sandwiches. I learned a lot, and now I know at least that the Earl of Sandwich was a real guy. Maybe he doesn't really deserve credit. You know, we shouldn't be calling it a sandwich necessarily, but he was a real guy, so that's nice at least. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this history, and so long. Hey, thanks for watching this video. This is my dog, Murphy, and these are dog treats. Now I'll give Murphy one of these dog treats, and all you have to do is press the like button. Just press that little like button right down there at the bottom of this video, and this sweet, adorable, cute little puppy gets a treat. All thanks to you. Alright, you did it? Okay, I believe you if you said you did it. There you go, Murph. She got that treat because of you. Now, I'll eat one of these treats, and all you have to do is click that subscribe button. Right there, pointing to it. Just click that subscribe button, subscribe to Curiosityness with me, Travis DeRose. Get lots of good video, and I'll eat this treat. Alright, you did that too? That's not very good. Bro, not very good.